Probably one of the most frustrating things for teachers, especially when you're trying to solve a problem for a student, is getting them to agree or getting them to say yes. Yes, they do want better grades. Yes, it would be better for them to spend more time on the process. Yes, it would be great if that was something that they had under their belt. Yes, you could definitely see how employers would find that a positive thing to have in their employee pool. Yes, they could see the benefit of starting right away. Yes. So what do you do when you can't get to yes? In this process, it may be that the student is feeling the emotional trouble. And it may be that the student is recognizing the logic of the solution. But they may be trying to mollify you. They may just be trying to say yes so that they can say yes, so that you can be quiet, and so that they can hustle away. If that is the case, you're kind of in a tough spot, because you either have to acknowledge defeat, which there's nothing wrong with. You can lead them to water, but you can't make them. You can lead them to water, but you can't make them drink. You can always say to them, well, I see that you're going to have some time to think about this. Or maybe it's something that they can't do because they don't have the money or what have you. Make sure that they understand how the iron triangle works. So just kind of be aware that those things are out there. Sorry, I was clearing my throat. So once you have a student who sees the merit but can't get to yes, even if you're using the proper arguments to close down that portion of the conversation and try to move on, you can always use persuading arguments to try to help them get on board. Persuasion isn't always easy, but it can have some pretty good consequences. So what I would suggest to you is, if you've tried to close out the conversation and get them to agree, if you've tried to sum things up, but it's still not taking, you may need to use persuasion. That's always a good fallback tactic if people won't listen. But you got to understand that in the end, it's you're doing this for their benefit. You're not trying to win an argument. And it may be that they don't want to hear it. They're not looking to have that. So in the last podcast, we talked about 3 methods that you could use to try to close out that conversation and get them to make those changes that you're requesting. So in this one, we're going to mark out 3 or 4 different methods for persuading someone to take the proper courses of action. So the first and easiest way of trying to reach a positive agreement is to give them a choice. Now, this is very easy to include, and it's actually quite vital. It's great in business, no doubt about it. But when you are trying to assist someone who is being a little bit reticent, or basically they're not sure if they want to take on the task that you're putting to them, offering them a choice is great. You don't ever want to give them one choice and that's the only solution, if you can help it. If you offer them two choices, they get to actively make a decision as to what's going to be the best course of action for them. And if you think about it, giving someone a choice makes it so that whatever happens in the end, they had the positive outcome. If it works out great, they said that they had a choice to do this or do that, and they chose that because it was best for them, and look how fantastic it's worked out. Choice will always, always win. So, you may expect someone, if they say, would you like us to rotate the tires or just the oil change today? Would you like us to hem it in, or will you be taking this to your own custom tailor? Some decisions are easier to make than others. So try to word it in such a way that you are always giving them a choice. If you give them a choice between one thing and nothing, you stand to sit in a spot where the student has no choice. And if they choose not to do it, they just give up the whole thing. You don't want a student to ever feel like they have no choice, or they have to go completely back to the drawing board. Another great thing that you can use to help people make the right decisions is to compliment a prior decision that they've made. This will get them in the mood where they notice something that they did or something that they've worked hard on in the past and the positive benefits that it brought, and then you can discuss how doing something similar in the future or trying something new will also bring about a great thing. So, for instance, if you might say, I see that in the past you are normally in here for new tires once every 3 years or once every 2 years, but I see that you bought the Kumo tires, and now that you've purchased this fine brand, it took you 4 years before you were in. That was a good decision. Would you like to make Kumo tires your choice again? Or, this last project you did, it didn't really work out. But let's look at this project that you did before that one. The prior project you did, you spent a lot of time, you said, in the research process. You got down to who the real audience was, you got down to why the solution was a good one, and you pushed yourself really, really hard. You got a great grade on that. I know you'd like to get a great grade again. Tell me. So, do you think you'll be using as much research this time around? I think it would be helpful, don't you? Now, sometimes when you're trying to help a student make a decision and they're feeling a bit like they want to and a bit like they don't, it can be real easy for you to feel that the best form of persuasion is to attack what they've done in the past and point out all of its flaws. But that, however, is not a bright move. When you point out just how terrible things are, you are certainly not building any positive rapport with that person. You're making them feel bad and you're making them feel defensive. Instead, what you want to do is highlight what has worked well. And you want to talk about the next step that they can do. So one way that you might look into that is you might say, Scott, I looked in on your last piece and I can tell that you have some highly conceptual work. You did a print piece that looked like a mobile phone. So people you said who would find typography boring might find a phone somewhat exciting. And so, sorry, I was just looking at a sign here. So you made a print piece that looked like an advertisement for a phone for a font. While that didn't work out, I see that your strong concepts are good and that you are pushing your concepts really, really far. Because you're so good on the conceptual side, it might mean that you have to push the technical side a little bit. I know that every piece that you have done seems to take just a little bit longer than you had expected it to do. And in the end, it looks almost like you run out of time. You want better quality, but you just don't have the time left before the project due date to come up with something fantastic. Is that right? Maybe this time, in addition to spending some time on the research, go ahead and put in a little extra time on the technical. Give yourself 2 days to complete your project instead of 1 day or instead of 8 hours. I think you'll find the solution would work better. Wouldn't you feel a little more confident if you knew you had 2 days of hard work? It might be really good to be done early. Or perhaps you might do something like this. Miss Olson, I see that you take great pride in the quality of your work. Everything that you do is very high quality. I really like how you are paying such close attention to the fine details. If you are paying such a close attention to the fine details, it is sometimes a pain that Photoshop makes your work jagged and pixelated when you increase the size. Don't you think that if you were able to work in scalable vector format, you might be able to change the sizes at any point in the design process without having to worry about pixelation? Why not consider scalable vector or Illustrator on your next project? In the business world, some people will try to sell by trying to replace your spare parts with their new parts. However, in teaching, there's not really any room for that. Instead, what you may want to do is to try to convince someone to make the change while offering while offering some hands-on guidance. So an example might be, your work in Photoshop is very, very good. However, Photoshop application runs out very, very quickly when it comes to practical use. It's good for small things. In this project, you should really be working with a type-based program like InDesign or Illustrator. Why don't you switch to Illustrator, and perhaps you could meet me in the ILC for 2 hours today, and we could work on it together. Or, if you try switching to Fireworks, I have office hours from 1 to 3. You could come by and we could see your progress then. Or, unfortunately, looks like you didn't do too well on your assignment. Maybe this time, a study group would be helpful. I know 1 or 2 other students in the class who would also like a study group. If I made an announcement, would you raise your hand? Something like this might push them down the path to success when they're maybe a little bit worried about making the adjustment right on the spot. The flip side of this process really has to do with pointing out the problem in more of a discovery frame of mind instead of punitive. So, for instance, in the field of graphic design, often this has to do with EFL or ESL students who are trying to use the English language, and they're running into problems. If you are trying to point out those issues, this probably isn't really the flip side of this, is it? So if you're trying to point out those issues, it is one thing to say on 3 or 4 projects that the issue is with the language, or you are running into spelling and grammatical errors all over the place. What you may want to do with something like that is focus on discovery and focus on exploration. If it is a type-related issue, such as the text is not really up to speed, if the student has a consistent issue, go print out the 2 or 3 pieces that they have and sit down with them and highlight the sections where the grammatical errors are, or circle the spelling errors, or use a blue pen for the typographic errors. Show them where the items do not line up, but they are supposed to. Show them where they are talking about, they're using their phrasing incorrectly. And don't put it in a punitive phrase, but just do it as an exploration phase. Talk about why each piece is incorrect. Tell them what the reader will think or feel when they see them. Tell them what the hiring manager, who is all about typography, will think when they see these poor font combinations, or these errors with how things are lined up, or this poor type hierarchy. Put it to them in terms of a lower paying job, or losing the position because they were not able to show their materials professionally. Similarly, if they are making problems on multiple projects, print out copies of their projects. Once they have printed out these projects, once they have printed out the projects in question, go ahead and sit down with them and show the line where the items should align. Show them the places, where the fonts should go, where the pictures should go, how the pieces should be placed next to one another so that they show unity and harmony, proportion, all of these things. Draw out the height that things should be. Draw in where the letters should stack to make a consistent, strong headline. Sometimes seeing is believing. If you're a music major, play the pieces that they've done back to them and point out where some possible issues might be. Or play the music that they've shown. Similarly, go back and play the music again, but this time use your expertise to show them how it might have changed to be more effective. If you are having a student who seems to need help on more than one occasion, perhaps an accessory or service would be a good way for you to breach that gap. After you talk with the student about their work, set a time where they can meet with you for a checkup. That way you can have a good idea of the progress that the student is making and how to do their best. By scheduling a time when a student knows they can come into your office for assistance and help, you will help them to get down the line. If they know that at any given point, if they have a problem, they can see your office hours, come by, meet with you in the ILC, drop you an email with a picture of their work, perhaps showcase their pieces on their blog or portfolio, etc. There is no reason why they can't succeed. Finally, create a tiered system of help and assistance. If you are talking, if you're talking with a student who is trying to come up with a system in which they can spend more time on their projects, then telling them to do it is not going to be easy. And chances are you are going to have problems that crop up again and again from person to person, from time to time, that there's no reason why you can't solve those issues in advance. So, for instance, if you know you have students with time problems, if you know you have students with time problems, when you recognize that one of those is coming, go ahead and prepare for that meeting. Write down a perfect system. Now, this perfect system is one in which you have gone for the gusto. You've noted that when they get up on, this is guessing that they have Sunday deadlines. When they get up on Monday, 8 o'clock in the morning, while they're having coffee and breakfast, they're going to dial into your class, and they're going to see what's due for the week. They're going to pull out their calendar and they're going to make some notes. If there's a discussion board, they're going to look at it real quick. They're going to do a little bit of research and put an initial entry into that discussion board. Then they're going to come back Wednesday in the middle of the week, and they're just going to reply to anybody who's in the discussion board. And then later that evening, they're going to read the materials that they haven't finished on Monday. Then on Friday, they're going to deal with their ads. They're going to deal with their work. Everything is going to be straightforward, and then they're going to turn in their work Saturday night. So they'll have Thursday, Friday, Saturday to do their work. If they run into any problems, they'll be able to email the teacher on Thursday. Go ahead and plan out a comprehensive system, the best use of time, and print that out and have it with you. Then print out a medium use of time. This is one where maybe the student looks at Blackboard the first day of the week in the morning, and then they have one session at the end of the week where they log back into Blackboard after doing all their work and all their readings, where they sign in their materials, and then they put in their assignments and they respond to their discussions. And that's kind of the middle of the road. And then set aside one that is the least, the bare bones that they can do. And so when you have finished talking out your problems with the students and you have said, these are some common issues that we have, here is a great system. Here is one calendar. Here is the second system that will work. And then after a significant pause, go ahead and pull out the third one. You may want to tell them that people who do the ultimate system do very, very well. And people who do the medium system often have more time than they think, and they can expand as needed. And then tell them that people using the least system often find that if they struggle, they can find more time to do good work, but it's still really, really tough. People who didn't think that they had enough time to do the fantastic work, some people, a small percentage, will actually take the fantastic project description and then they'll go. And then the medium people, a percentage will take those. And finally, anyone who looked at that big system and said, that's too much of a time commitment for me. And the people who looked at that medium system and said, I don't know if I'll be able to find that time, will look at the minimum time system. And they'll find that they really can push themselves beyond the minimum. But they'll take all three with them. Ask them to take all three with them. To apply this knowledge today, look at these different ways of trying to assist someone and think about how you are really trying to benefit them, not come out a winner, or for you to come out as the conversation master. Remember, this is really for the student's benefit. You can't make them do everything, and sometimes you can't even make them do anything. So, to apply this knowledge today, look over these different sets. Which one is going to be right for you? Which one will be right in situations that you have noted in the past come up over and over and over again? Take them, look at them, study them, and try them until you can approach these situations individually to those problems, but in a comfortable sounding way. Every time you approach one of these situations where you are trying to convince someone, just remember it's an educational process. You already know that it's good. You already know that it's a change they should make. But you need to emphasize the fact that making these choices, taking these solutions to heart, will raise the student. So make sure that you are raising the importance and the benefit of this in the mind of the student. Again, remember, the ultimate point of completing any of these is to do what's best for the student and to make sure that the student's best interests are undertaken. Hope you've enjoyed this. Sorry it was a bit long. Please feel free to comment in the doobly-doo below. Please subscribe so you don't miss out on anything, and absolutely destroy that like button. Share this with any like-minded individuals out there, and by all means, design your future.